Hi, my name is Paul Graham and I'm the Head of Global Compliance for Equity, a specialist synthetic broker with a focus on MENA and the emerging markets within the fintech space. As a group, we host a 730k entity in the UK, which is our centralised venue of execution, and so like many, Brexit and the known unknowns form a key aspect of how we will align ourselves with regard to future-proofing our regulatory framework in the face of this evolving environment. To start, let me set the record straight. Risk and compliance really is the new rock and roll, and it is the sexy and cutting-edge element of finance. The impact of 2008 and beyond has left an indelible mark, and so now the regulatory environment will forever be tilted towards the importance of compliance and risk. It is now well accepted that firms are ever engaging with the identified needs for compliance and the importance of size and sophistication being matched by skill and cultural drivers. The last decade has been an interesting, challenging, and ever-changing time, and particularly so for the OTC sphere, with the advent of defined robo-advisors, cryptocurrencies, product intervention, and with a steep advance in technology, the regulatory umbrella has become ever more pronounced, and so the need for compliance systems and controls is now more important than ever. Brexit potentially provides cliff-edge scenarios that really have not been faced before, but it is for noting that all regulators will be committed to ensuring market integrity, protecting clients and facilitating competition. For those well versed in the Brexit journey, this is not an attempt to teach people how to suck eggs, but merely a general walkthrough of the current climate, the issues we face and the outcomes that this has driven with regard to the rise of the multi-licensed broker and what many see as a move away from the gold-plated London-only solution that was once the common standard. Given the unknown nature of Brexit and the continued ability to not agree terms, the FCA can be commended on its attempts to colour in the universe for regulated entities when parts of the jigsaw are still missing. The HMT issuance of the catchy Phase 2 consultation paper, Financial Services Future Regulatory Framework Review, delineates the division of responsibilities between financial service regulators and HM Treasury and Parliament. As such, the government and the Treasury will be responsible for policy framework, which the regulators will work within. The theme is still carried that impact should not be immediate. EU standards will continue in the most part to be observed, and the UK regulator shall create a single source of truth via their rulebooks. So what does this mean in practice? Well, as stated by John Glenn, Economic Secretary of the Treasury, we can now regulate differently if there is a need. This tone and the potential for a regulatory change is what will shape divergence from EU practices. For the sake of this audience, I have focused on the key issues for the FX world and not an all-encompassing impact of Brexit on the vast regulatory scale. The most significant impacts and move towards de-harmonisation for the industry are passporting. It is very unlikely that there will be a continuation of access to the single market as it is now, and so companies face the likelihood of not having access to clients that they once took for granted. There are more than 5,500 MiFID passporting entities that will be affected by this within the UK. The government has taken action via the temporary permissions regime to protect the circa 8,000 passporting-in entities that operate within the UK for the short term. The regulator expects the loss of passporting to limit outstanding cross-border activities and is likely that regulated entities may need to seek authorisation in member states of operation, and hence the rise of the multi-licensed broker. Equivalency. Upon Brexit, the UK will need to qualify as a third country, and as such will not have access to passports. But further, they will be able to create and host their own regulations, which, if not harmonised with the EU, and are a move away to more UK-specific policies, this will further damage the ability to transact with existing EEA relationships. The reality is that the uncertainties around passporting and equivalency, with the increasing potential for divergence from EU regulations, has left many London-centric houses with a need to pre-plan and have a strategy that will allow them to continue business as usual with regard to the provision of their core activities. This will clearly be focused on business growth by client solicitation. And so the fear of having established markets closed off and become inaccessible, and indeed the potential lack of ability to maintain and serve hard-fought-for existing clients, has been a defining trigger in what is essentially a dash for new regulatory cover. The CFD sphere, in particular from a UK perspective, is arguably a highly saturated world, and the cost of acquisition of clients is a fundamental component in the success or failure of new-to-market houses. Potential EU divergence and, of course, lack of passporting has meant that many UK houses have decided that as a means of absolute redundancy, there was a need to be separately EU regulated in order to be able to continue to service existing clients and, of course, achieve and maintain growth in this very competitive market space. This has meant that there has been a significant uptick in equities CFD peers seeking licensed solutions throughout the EU, with Cyprus and Germany being the two principal beneficiaries of the move towards multi or at least dual licensing. Equity, whom are regulated in 6 different jurisdictions in the face of Brexit, are also in the process of opening such a solution in Cyprus to continue established client activities. This need of new licenses to cover fragmentation has 3 discernible effects. 1, there is an increased barrier to market, which as ever impacts the effectiveness of the market on a fiscal level. The OTC world in particular is adversely impacted, and a divergence of regulations can lead to impact upon liquidity pools as access will be restricted. This will inevitably result negatively on the OTC instruments and the wider market through a reduction in competition and an increased cost to the consumer. Any reduction in liquidity depth will of course impact the ability to trade larger transactions and so materially affect institutional flow and prime of prime providers the greatest. It is for noting that over time, any further significant restructuring of the regulations and the resulting divergence of regulatory protocols will affect the markets to an even greater extent. 2, cost of business increases due to unavoidable duplications with impact upon UK employment. The dash for coverage by dual and additional licenses means that there will be an inevitable replication of roles. There are 2 impacts of this. One is the increased cost to the licensed entity as they will need to hire more staff, and the other is the potential transportation of support functions away from the UK to what will most likely be a cheaper environment solution within the EEA or the rest of the world. 3, the expansion in attractiveness of other global hubs goes beyond the EEA. There is only a finite pool of clients within the EEA, and this client base is somewhat dominated by a few of the biggest brokers. And client acquisition in this zone is driven by swappers as much as new organic flow. The ability to compete on a global basis with local providers and bring the most advanced technology solutions is an attractive marketplace indeed. There is also a need for reflection upon what clients actually want. With the advent of the product intervention in CFDs, there was significant pushback from the market participants as well as a vocal calling from clients. London and the EEA have exceptionally high standards of care towards clients, and product offerings and spreads are consistently tight amongst peers. And so now it is a matter of service levels, tangible benefits such as educational programs and the provision of sophisticated data to assist with trading that is essentially a must-have for market providers now. The reduction in margin levels was a blow to service providers, but also the clients themselves, and so many do seek alternative, lesser-known spheres to access the leverage that they require to make their trading successful. It has been a historical trend that at times the potential to over-regulate something has the unintentional effect of actually pushing clients away from the regulated world and into the arms of lesser governance jurisdictions that are not pari passu to the high-level standards of the UK and the EEA. As such, the rise of the multi-license broker is unquestionably advantageous to clients. This means that in the search for growth and service provision, it is now inevitable that OTC providers will look at establishing a greater footprint on a granular level with local licenses in attractive and robustly evolving environments, as well as global provision from established regulated jurisdictions that provide clients with comfort with regards to the products that they are being offered. This journey is beneficial to the client and provider alike. The provider gets to increase their sphere of influence and client base and thus revenue, whilst the client has access to the best product offerings from the most highly regarded entities who will bring a best-of-breed adoption of governance, compliance, and a duty of care to the client. Importantly, this must be seen as an opportunity for UK and EEA-centric firms to level the playing field with regard to attractive margin rates that clients demand and can make them competitive on a rest-of-world basis. So, what will the impact on the regulatory landscape be, and what does the future bring? The impact for multi-license entities is clear. Whilst all regulated entities will have to be robust and observe their local regulations by adherence to best international practices, there will still be the need for the autonomy of designated boards and the compliance function. Compliance must be mindful of changes to the geopolitical and geographic climate. Countries always try and write regulations that are beneficial to themselves, and so now, with enhanced scope for divergence, we will certainly see regulatory change. The transitional period is very short, And whilst there should be little immediate deep impact, it is essential to keep abreast of any changes in the EEA, the UK, or the rest of the world where you are operating. Compliance must be a voice and part of the business brain trust during these times to ensure the correct navigation of these murky waters. The fight against financial crime. Money laundering is now a true global concern. And on the back of events such as Panama Papers and the recent FinCEN files, we will only see an escalation of the absolute need to identify and verify clients whilst acknowledging source of funds and wealth. The move in many jurisdictions to solidify economic substance to attack shell entities is of particular importance and should be a large part of the compliance oversight. Sanctions and PEPs must also be under the spotlight, as the UK will not have the same influence post-Brexit. There is a need for enhancements of trade surveillance around market abuse and general conduct. Whilst the product has many positives, there is no doubt that share trading via CFDs is attractive to insider traders, and also conduct behaviour on the more global level for all products will need to be observed to ensure clients are treated fairly with no abusive or toxic strategies being pushed upon them by the adaptation of EAs or robo-advisors. Conflicts of interest. With change comes new conflicts of interest. These will come at intergroup level as well as external provider level. So it is important to identify and mitigate or publicise any potential conflicts. Now, no discussion in 2020 would be complete without at least a mention of the dreaded COVID-19. There is no denying that there has been a dramatic impact in the normal working day of most individuals. Given that many staff are working from home, there are potential gaps in IT architectures of business that are the medium of access for cyber criminals. The UAE and its principal regulators have been at pains to educate businesses about the increased levels of cybercrime and the preventative needs via education. This is a global trend that regulators support, and it is not going to go away and should be on the table for every risk-based discussion for the foreseeable future. No matter what and how the compliance universe moves in the future, what is clear is that the rise of the multi-license broker is a welcome and beneficial phenomenon that will make it safer for clients to trade with confidence on a global basis, and it will promote a uniform best-of-breed compliance culture. It is clear then that the future is bright for those well-positioned to take on the multi-license endeavour. It has been my pleasure talking to you about Brexit and beyond, and we here at Equity wish you all the best with your trading.